Hi there. My name is Deanne Battle, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of the Composite. My last episode was, I believe, August 19th, so I've been off for about a month, but not off, right? I've been working, traveling, writing, things like that. So I'm happy to be here this evening, happy to check in for season 2 and get started with another season of random commentary, personal stories, and some, business elements. All right. So a little about me, the one with the crazy hair here. I started a new job, right? So I'm out of private school for the foreseeable future, and I am back at community college. So working with adults, working in a different environment. It's been, at least the classroom aspect of it, has been a lot less stressful. So that's been great. What is not so great is my commute at the moment. So I am trying to, find an apartment again in the New York City metropolitan area. And I think I touched on this the last couple of episodes of season 1. But the New York City housing market, the way that it's changed has been, intense. So I am a native New Yorker, right? I grew up in Queens and Brooklyn. And then, as a working adult, I had different roommate situations and things like that in the city. But in 2011, I just was like, listen, that was when I started officially in education. I've always had tutoring jobs and stuff like that off and on. But, I officially, became, a fledgling teacher in, 2012. But in 2011, at the time I was working, I was doing what would you say I did? I worked at a fintech company, but I did a combination of sales analyst work and, executive assistanting anyway. But and salary wise, I just couldn't, afford a studio or afford my own place. So I had various roommates situations, and then I had moved back home, and I was at home with my parents. And then I found, a cheap, not so great apartment in New Jersey. And I lived there for almost the next 5 years. And so I haven't looked for an apartment in New York in a long time, right? 2011-ish until now. And it's, 2023. And so before, when I looked, there were, a lot of options in the sense of crappy apartments or crappy roommate situations. But you could, kind of sift through it and, see if you could find something that worked for you. But now, there aren't even that many apartments in terms of the inventory, to be honest. Excuse me. And, the sweet spot, so to speak, is I want to say, $2,200 to $2,500 range, in terms of thinking about, a studio or a super small junior 1-bedroom. And so that is out of my price range. And so, it's been hard to navigate okay, well, I'm excited about this job opportunity, but, you don't want to go backwards in terms of how you're living. So, I've been looking, haven't seen that many apartments because, like I said, people are putting tons of stuff on the market that has no kitchen, and this shit is still renting super fast. So I'm like, wow. But anyway, I'm thinking about, okay, so those are not an option. So, New York City has housing lotteries. So I've signed up for some of those, about a dozen. So I'll be waiting to hear back. And then, I've also looked at, roommate options because I'm like, okay, well, I might have to go back to that. But even some of that, they're asking for, like a 700 credit score, which I don't have at the moment. Folks that know me or have, listened to, my previous broadcasts, I, moved from the South last summer and I came back east. And that move was super expensive and disastrous. So it decimated my credit for the time being. Now it's going back up, but it's not, where it needs to be. My previous employer was really suspicious, for lack of a better word, suspect, really, when it came to helping me, fund that previous move. So there was no transparency around that process. And so, it ended up being, a lot more expensive and, again, just kind of all over the place in terms of what I'm used to. And so, they have salary requirements and credit requirements to be a roommate. And then, as a roommate, like certain people, they're like, oh, we want someone that doesn't cook every day, or that person, works from home and they want someone who's, in the office all day. And my teaching schedule right now is hybrid. So I'm in person 3 days and then I'm online for 2 days. So I can't really live anywhere where I'll have to, compete for, airtime in terms of me being online teaching and then someone else being in the background online at a meeting or something like that. So there are a lot of moving pieces in terms of, me trying to find my little spot. So yeah, I'm doing an Uber commute now where a few days a week I'm trying to go between, outside of Philly to the heart of New York City. And I've done it 6 times now. Again, it's not like a permanent solution, but it's been interesting because you see like, oh, who's on the road at like 4:30 or 5 in the morning versus who's on the road when like normal people are driving. And then you realize Mondays are the worst days for traffic. It's just like everybody's everywhere on Monday. And versus, Tuesdays and Wednesdays isn't not great, but not as bad. You realize about yourself, like what your body feels like when you're sitting there for a few hours each way, how you keep your mind occupied and everything. So yeah, it's been a lot, but at the same time, I can honestly say being somewhat stressed about, making sure I'm safe and on time for work is way different than just being stressed because your job is like the job from hell. So I'm definitely like emotionally in a better place now than I was. So stay tuned for that. That's going to be an interesting ride, literally and metaphorically. But yeah, I'm teaching adults again. So that is, I think, a positive development for me. Not having to worry about, Johnny jumping on tables and ordering Chick-fil-A and telling rape jokes and all of the other fun stuff that happened in my classroom last year. So, yeah. When you're working with students, right, and they have no sense of decorum, if they're an adult, you could have a different conversation versus if they're a child, you realize, oh, okay, well, I'm partly responsible for helping release this sociopath into the universe. So I feel way less guilty now. that's off the table and off my chest. All right. So that is my update. What's going on writing wise? And I mentioned this as well. At the end of season 1, I did a writing conference in August, which was really awesome. And I think I got some really solid writing work done in August. I started this new job, around August 20th or 21st, something like that. And really haven't done too much in terms of working on this book. However, my particular school, they're very mindful of, different cultures and their religious holidays. So we have Monday off for Yom Kippur. And so, I'll be working. I was working today, working tomorrow online. But then I think I'll have an extra day over the weekend to maybe get some writing done. So I'm super excited about that because, being in transition in these different elements of my life, I don't ever want to lose sight of, working on my stories that I want to tell. It really gives me joy. It's really important to me. So I'm glad I'll be able to engage in some of that this weekend. And then I can check in, with whoever watches the next episode, just in terms of talking about how it went. So that's exciting. Excuse me. I have this cough that let's say for about 3 weeks now, and I'm taking the COVID test, and I'm asthmatic, but I take my medicine and stuff like that, and it's not aggressive, but it's just lingering. And it's oh, you're still here. I need to maybe go and get that checked out, which I will do once my new insurance kicks in. So something else I need to do, fill out those forms. But I'm excited about that too, because the copays and all of that stuff, the medication copay, much lower. Yes, being a municipal worker, there are definitely benefits for it. So my writing, other things, in terms of a pop culture thing, something that's really killing me, just in terms of just being flabbergasted, is this whole Shirley Strawberry situation. Wow. Okay, so a ton of people have done videos on it. So I'm not going to rehash similar angles, to what other folks have said. Sorry, I had a notification that came up on my phone. But essentially, Shirley Strawberry, she does this segment on the Steve Harvey show, and it's called Strawberry Letters. And, people are writing in. She gives them advice. And so, again, she's a very close associate and confidant of Steve Harvey. She's worked on this show for, I think, over 20 years. And so she's very well known. She's written her own book, at least one book. And respected for her advice, right? And so now all of this stuff is coming out because the man that she was married to, he's been accused of fraud, of pedophilia, of bestiality. He has active restraining orders keeping him from children, from animals. Every day new stuff comes out about this guy. Someone did a FOIA request and has, extensive minutes of calls between her and this guy. He's got at least 2 side chicks. So there are calls between him and the side chicks. And it's just wow, you are doing a lot. And again, it's the salaciousness of the proximity to Steve Harvey, right? Because if we're honest, right, the level of self-righteousness that he kind of puts out there. And I say this as somebody who I bought that first book that he put out, How to Think Like a Man. I had saw him giving talks about the book. And, I was just at a place in my life where I was just like, dating is hard to figure out. Like, I don't really have a good poker face. So if I say something to you, you can take it pretty much at face value, right? But that's not how people are playing out in these streets. And so I was like, okay, well, would it hurt to get advice from, a male perspective? No. So I did buy that book and I read it a couple of times. And he said a couple of things in there that, made sense. But, I feel his brand, so this is my perspective, people can feel free to disagree, but I feel his brand over the years has really evolved to include, again, a level of self-righteousness. And so when you're put in that, or putting yourself in that holier than thou space, right, it's shocking that all of this shit was going down around him. I don't think it would be without his knowledge. And the reason I say that is Shirley and her husband, in air quotes, because apparently he was married to another woman when she had her wedding ceremony with him, right? So she and the husband were evicted 5 times. Her salary was garnished for thousands and thousands of dollars. So it doesn't seem like this was something that was happening completely outside of Steve's purview, right? He knows that, one of the key people on his show is, either having financial issues or is, making bad financial decisions, something like that. Like he knows something is up with Shirley and this guy. And so that's one part of it, right? Is that, if you're positioning yourself again as somebody who has it all together, and then all of this stuff is going on around you, it's kind of like, does that maybe change the people's perception of your brand? And that's one element. But the other element that I think is maybe even more instructive is that people have been calling into this show and writing into this show for multiple decades looking for advice from a woman who should not be giving advice based on all of this stuff. I mean, put it this way, even if a tenth of what is out there about her husband is true, that's a tenth too much, right? He's already done too much. Like, let's say, it's not the pedophilia and the bestiality, it's only the bestiality. Like, that's too much, right? It's not the evictions and the bigamy because he was already married, it's only the bigamy. Like, that's too much. It's not the being arrested for fraud, right? It's the being arrested for, it's not the being arrested for fraud or the side chicks. It's just the side chicks. Like, that's too much. He has way too much going on where even like a 5% of it is too much. He's like the first 48 plus cops plus Law and Order Special Victims Unit. Like, you don't need all those shows in one person. Like, doing way, way, way too much. But yet, this is somebody that people were writing into to get advice. So one thing I was thinking about earlier today, it's what is advice exactly? Right? Because I guess when I was younger, I thought advice was somebody who's older and wiser just giving you feedback on the right way to go, right? But based on things that they've seen, based on things they've experienced, again, because they're older and wiser. But if we apply that to this situation, Miss Shirley Strawberry is in her 60s. And I mean, yes, she's older than me, but does not seem wise based on all of this stuff. Especially the allegations around her family, around things this man has done to harm her daughter and her grandchildren. That's not wise, right? And so if you're a person who you feel like you're in a situation where you need advice or you're looking for advice, what actually is the criteria in terms of someone who can give advice? And I'm asking that earnestly because I don't want to go to the other extreme, right? I don't want to say, okay, well, someone has to have their shit perfect, right? Or executed perfectly in order to be a voice of reason for someone else. I don't think that's the case. But again, Shirley Strawberry has been in a position for over 20 years where she's been giving advice primarily, I believe, to women. So does this now taint things that people might have got out of her commentary? Or do you consider those two separate things? I honestly don't know, right? Because let's say somebody writes in with a strawberry letter and Shirley might have told them exactly what they needed to hear to make really positive changes in their lives. And so if they were able to make those changes, right, let's say if it was 3 years ago, so you fast forward from 2020 and you fast forward to 2023, and let's say, oh, I'm in a new place and, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, I'm doing well financially, I was able to fix my marriage, or I was able to be a better parent. So that person is in a better place, but the person who motivated them to get there, perhaps, is someone who, again, in my opinion, should not be giving advice anymore. So, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Shirley Strawberry is just messed up just enough where she can see how someone else is messed up and say, hey, here's a way to fix it, even though she's not fixing her own shit. So, that was just an interesting situation to me. A little bit less because of what she's going through, but just a little bit more, though, because of her platform and the people she's been able to influence. I've been thinking about that a lot, too. I have this fledgling platform that I'm working with here, but sometimes that's, more than what a lot of people have, right? And so there's a certain level of responsibility that comes with that. But do we place too much stock in platforms, right? So in other words, we'll, as a culture, elevate people like Shirley Strawberry, right? Because she has the national reach, being on a syndicated morning talk show. So her advice that she can potentially give is elevated over somebody who just kind of has been in your neighborhood for 30 years who lives down the street, And so credibility, right? And the unspoken credibility that we give people based on who they're associated with, based on where they are in their lives, maybe that's unwarranted as well. But you can, obviously see that hearing a story about a man who's in jail for fraud and pedophilia and bestiality at the same time, you can see how that would cause me to question a lot here. Because that he's doing so much. And then you listen to the phone calls And this was the part that was killing me. So my mom is staying with me for a little while. She's in town. And we've been listening to some of these jailhouse prison calls. And, you know, the guy sitting there and he just keeps being like, wow, 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 what? And he has no commentary for Shirley other than that. And that's an ironic part of this too, because so she's been spending her career, right, part of it at least, giving other people advice about what to do. And now she's in this legal and publicity laden nightmare, right? And so she's on these prison calls with the person who started it, basically. And she's like looking to tell him her story and get advice. And he's just like, wow. He has nothing for her, nothing to contribute whatsoever. But yet when he's on the phone with the side chicks, right, he has all the game. He's like talking to them. He's flirting with them. He's being, saucy. He's, telling them what to do, or, he's at least advising them like, oh, this situation, you can handle it this way or that way, la, la. So if the lights are on in someone's home when he's talking to these other women, but not with Shirley Strawberry. So I'm like, so he was married to this woman. He was helping her spend up her money because they kept getting evicted. And he seemingly has zero interest in anything going on with her. It's fascinating because then you're wondering about her. You have the foresight or the perception, or at least you're able to mimic perception in the sense that you are able to comment on other people's lives and give them advice. But again, like, are you looking at your own life and your own situation with that same critical eye? Because if you were, I would have a problem with the fact that, oh, the cops, or the FBI came and they took my car and they took my wedding ring and they took all this stuff away from me because of some stuff you did. And all you have to say is, wow. I would be like, listen, I have your wow, sir. There are a lot of wows coming from places that you would not want to see a wow come from. I'm just saying. So, that's one thing. Any other pop culture elements? A lot of celebrity couples are getting divorced now. Hugh Jackman's getting divorced after almost 30 years. Just, what happens? I just want to send them a note, like, or, when those planes fly over with the banner, just a banner, you don't want to be out here, because you really don't. It's the dating pool. It's like Skid Row. It's bad out here. So, but at the same point, like, what's happening in that relationship, right? That even though it's really bad out here, after 30 years, not 30 minutes, but after 30 years that he or she or both were like, yeah, you know what? We're going to pack this up. This isn't working. So it's like, it either must be essentially bad, or they're not, thinking through the lack of options in terms of what's happening out on these streets. Out on these streets. It's terrible. Who else? Jeezy and Jeannie Mae are getting divorced. Womp womp. I really am not a fan of either person. I think it's sad for their kid. Excuse me. Now, in terms of news elements, we still have Trump trial, Michigas going. Some election stuff. This is going to be a really lackluster election season. I think even more than usual because the front runners for each party, they should be called the front walkers. Like there's no running happening there. We're really at a point where the political class we need a change of the guards, right? Because the people that we have, and I'm not throwing shade because they're older. I'm throwing shade because they're older and in decline. And I think that their decline is contributing to the country's decline, right? Like even just get people like 10 years younger than Joe Biden and Dianne Feinstein and Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. Just get people like 10 years younger. I don't think that's too much to ask for. And I think we would see a bit of a difference. But that's not how we're set up in terms of our money in politics and, operating on a corporatized model, and everybody's taking bribes and stuff like that. So yeah, the older people are going to be at the helm of everything just because they've been in the game longer. And so companies know that, these are unknown, these people are known factors, right? These people definitely take the bribes and do what we want based on it. So yeah, they're going to keep, and when I say they, I mean donors will keep supporting them, even if they can't remember, what they had for lunch 5 minutes before. So, there's that. So I don't know if I'll do in this second season. I don't know if I'll do too much election type coverage. I don't really know if it's worth the discussion, frankly, which is a sad thing to say, but that's kind of where I am with it. So other things. No, I think that's going to be it for this evening. We'll just do a short episode. I'm just glad that I'm back, that I'm, able to compose myself, put it together enough to get you an episode this evening. And I'm looking forward to what we have coming up this season. I'm really hoping that I can get some volunteers to do an online writing consultation with me, because I think that I'm good at that in terms of the skill set you need for it that I've cultivated over the years, and I think it would be good content. So I'll continue to post ads asking for people to consider that, right, to give me either an academic essay or some of their creative work, and then have an opportunity to talk through that. I definitely will have guests this season for interviews, so I'll be canvassing for that, and we'll see what else is on the horizon. But I'm grateful to have this time and space to share with others in terms of my thoughts and everything. And this has been season 2, episode 1 of The Composite. I will be back on before the end of the week, either Friday or Saturday. Maybe I'll do a Saturday night, Saturday night at the club type of episode for The Composite. We shall see. But nevertheless, have a good evening, or if you're watching the playback, have a good rest of your day. All right? Take care.